After my video on how I coached my nephew to Radiant got really popular, a lot of people have been asking me for coaching. Unfortunately, I can't get all of you guys one-on-one, so the next best thing that I can do is hook you guys up with the sauce for free. When you play Jett, do you find yourself inconsistent? Are you lost sometimes? Well, you're in luck, because in this video, I'm going to be giving you guys a deep breakdown on how to play Ascent like a Radiant Jett main. So firstly, if you haven't been to my channel, some credentials to my name is that I've been Radiant since beta and I've peaked ace on the NA leaderboards while maining Jett. I've hit Radiant more times than I can count, and I don't even have enough fingers on my hand to count the amount of accounts that I've hit Radiant on. With that being said, in this video, I'm going to be breaking down how to have the most impact as a Jett on the map Ascent. I made a poll the other day and this is what the fans wanted. So before we get to cooking, the thing we're going to be mainly focusing on is your role as a Jett on your team. To keep things simple, this video will be broken into two parts, offense and defense. This video is pretty much going to be a base guideline to reinforce how you play Jett and how to get value for your team while playing this agent. Let's get into it. Like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be breaking down this video into two parts, offense and defense. We're going to start off on defense because attacking comes down to a lot of counterplay, figuring out what the enemy is doing and using it against them. So to build a foundation that you can look at to try to counter, we're going to talk about how you should be playing Jett on defense first. So first and foremost, I want you guys to dispel all notion that Jett's value comes from just kills. That's the type of mindset that'll have your confidence built on quicksand. When it comes to playing Jett, there's way more to it than just getting a bunch of kills. From early bouts of information and map control, all the way to forcing out early utility and reactions from the enemy team. We're going to deep dive into the defense side of things for realsies now. I want you guys to start looking at the map a little bit more critically. You can break down a good majority of these maps into three big lanes. Bind is the only exception. When you break it down into three lanes like this, you'll notice that with the spawn barriers up, there's these neutral zones on the map. These neutral zones are super important points of contention. You can tell because a bunch of these areas have orbs in them. Majority of the time, pro teams structure their attacking defaults on taking control of these areas as efficiently and safely as possible, while vice versa, the defenders try to disrupt it. When it comes to Ascent, there's this A main area, all of this mid area, and this B main chunk. If you want to improve your understanding of the game and in turn improve your game sense, it's crucial you start knowing how to play the map. For example, say you fight A main. You one way and you fight it, and with a single stroke of aggression, they can't get A site without clearing you guys first. They're going to be forced to dump utility to clear A main or just simply rotate somewhere else. And that's when you can start reading and molding the rhythm of the game rather than just sitting on site and gambling if they're going to hit your site or not. You can start playing chess rather than a game of chance. When you're playing the game of chance, that's when people find themselves playing retake simulator. As a Jett, I want you floating, meaning I want you attacking all these three different points of contention. I think it's a big new move for Jetts to just limit themselves by sticking and play towards one side the whole game. One of the most important traits of being a Jett main is being unpredictable. You can never let these MFs know your next move. Since we're already on the topic of A main, to help you guys visualize and structure all the different ways that you could be playing towards this side of the map, we're going to be breaking down this lane into 5 levels. To be the best player you can possibly be, you should be breaking down your gameplay into levels to keep from being stagnant. You never want to be an autopilot. There's different rounds and scenarios where some levels are going to be better plays than others, so I will be referring to them as levels so you guys know what I'm talking about. Level 1 is right here inside this neutral area in A main. You might already be familiar with the usual aggressive Jett and Reyna fights that take place here. People go wide and take a shot and then dash or dismiss out. These sort of plays aren't inherently bad because if you're Jett, you got that get out of jail free card dash in your pocket. But I want you to look deeper than just simply going for the first blood. Generally, I see 3 important values that contesting areas aggressively like this brings. First of the 3 being the obvious one, early engagements, which are those first bloods. The round gets so much easier once you instantly put your team in a 5v4 scenario. When you're playing this level 1, there's so many different routes that you can go to force these early engagements that I implore you guys to get comfortable with. We're going to get back to this point in a second. The second value I would say is draining enemy utility early. For example, say you op A main one round, a Sky swings and he dies. The next round, he's going to be ready. He's going to be worried about that operator, so he's going to be forced to use a dog to clear out A main and push you back. That's a tremendous amount of value for your team right there, because one dog clearing out A main just to push you off that angle is one less dog to push site and break your cipher trips, for example. If you make them use their utility early, that's less utility that they have to hit a site with. The third and final value that I would put is map control / information. Say you contest A main early one round. The enemy fights mid and takes out a teammate Cat and makes the quick decision to flood A from Cat. If you actively have A main control and then in the process take out a lurker or something, you have the enemy team in a vice. They can't secure A site because they're in danger from the A main angle and the rotators who should be coming in to help you towards this tree in heaven side. It's pretty much a checkmate if you stay alive. Or for a more simple example, say you take the risk and get this aggressive line of sight right here and you see nothing. It allows you to relay the information to your teammates and be like, hey, nothing back over here towards this A side, let's stack towards B. If you single-handedly shut down this A lane, it allows your teammates to reinforce the other 2 lanes. So I want you to keep those 3 values in mind. Let's get back to understanding the strengths and weaknesses of level 1. I strongly suggest you get really comfortable trying to contest level 1. It becomes extremely important. The best time in my opinion to play and contest this level is whenever someone on the enemy team is farming orbs. Say Killjoy is 1 off her ultimate. Her ultimate has the potential to win rounds single-handedly. A lot of people plan entire rounds around heavy hitting ultimates like these. I want you to get ahead of that. You can do it alone like an alpha with your dash primed and ready, trusting in your gun skill to shut them down, but it's always preferred to have some sort of help. My preferred way is with a one-way smoke from your controller, whether it's Astra, whether it's Brim, or whether it's Omen. All smokes work just as well. You can hold for overextends, and if they even think about going through it, they're donezo. Another alternative is that if you got anybody with a flash on your team, you can coordinate to flash off the orb being tapped and fight there. Something else that I enjoy doing is a bait and switch. You can go wide as Jett, take the early fight, and then you dash away and then have your teammate flash and peek off your signal. The sky is the limit, so get creative with whatever you have to work with. Another round where contesting level 1 is really beneficial is when the enemy team is on a save buy or a force buy. Whenever people are broke, people usually tend to autopilot and play for picks. And in turn, they use it as a throwaway round to farm some orbs. Very seldom do people invest in utility on rounds like this, so it's a great round to pad some stats and not leave it up to chance. Don't overcommit though. If the one way is running out when you're holding it, or your dash runs out, it's pretty hard to fight 3 people swinging you at once. So remember, play smart. Contesting level 1 like this works really well against teams that love full sending it too. Sometimes it's really difficult to hold the site against 5 people no matter what agent you're playing. It's really hard to stop people spamming utility and rushing sites. So don't be afraid to stack A main with 3 or maybe even 4 people. One possibility is that you can stack A main here with the aforementioned one way, some flashes, and some mollies chained together. If they were aggressive before and they try to aggress again, the players that are leading the charge are for sure going to be walking into the meat grinder. Whenever you do though, it's crucial that the opposite side plays a little bit safer in turn. One of the main reasons contesting level 1 is insanely important in my opinion is because this is when you can start conditioning the enemy team. All it takes is one round, one pick for them to be wary of the possibility of you fighting again the next round. It's going to be making playing the other levels stronger. Think death by 1,000 cuts. Once you can start conditioning how they play, that's when you can start countering their counters. This is when you raise your game from checkers to chess. Let me give you an example. Say you're going against a Phoenix. First round, you take him out. He's angry about it. Next time, he flashes. Little does he know, this round, you're anticipating it. You decide to wait a little bit and use timing to your advantage and peek after his flash goes off. He breaks his keyboard. Depending on the agents you're playing against, you can work on anticipating how they're going to try to stop you, and you can work on being one step ahead. You probably guessed it by now, but something that's extremely crucial for you to fight level 1 and for it to work is teamwork. If your teammates aren't giving you a hand with utility, don't stake your life on fighting these areas. Trying to solo a 5-man push is pretty much impossible when it comes to just your gun skill. So now let's move on to level 2. Level 2 is going to consist of these close angles like switch, the top of these boxes, this close corner, angles that I would consider pretty vulnerable. Sitting duck angles as I like to put it. These spots aren't bad, you just gotta know when to use them. Let me paint the picture on some things that will be your downfall when using these angles. Say you're sitting in one of these angles and you're pretty much alone. You're in a one and done. You don't have a crossfire going on or have anybody playing off you for that matter. You haven't made an effort to contest level 1 early on so the enemy has all their utilities though. If you're in one of these close angles when any of those unfortunate circumstances are met, most likely than not, you're going to be cleared before you even have the chance to do anything. Whether it's a well-placed Sova Dart or Fade Eye, Sova Drone or Skydog, or a competent Jett that dashes out into his own smoke and looks both ways and spots you. Even a contact play leaves a 50-50 if you're holding these angles. Players with really good crosshair placement know how to isolate angles and they will hard clear you out of pure muscle memory. There's got to be a couple criteria met before these angles can succeed. Here's a couple that you should be looking out for. Firstly, like I mentioned earlier, contesting early to bait out utility is a tremendous help. This is why it's important to condition the enemy by contesting level 1. There's going to be times in ranked where you go against a comp that only has a single initiator. Initiators have the job to make way for the team to move around the map. If you're going against a lonely Sova and make him waste his goods early on, they're going to be forced to hit site and clear all these angles manually. And that's where you start to profit. Something that helps tremendously is a smoke in this A main choke. This added with them not having info utility, if they walk out through the smoke, they are walking into the complete unknown. Look at all these different angles they gotta process and deal with all at the same time. If they're walking out, they can only guess what angles they have to clear first, while you have the privilege of knowing exactly where they're coming from. Something else that helps tremendously is help from teammates. It's going to be rare that you're ever going to be able to bait out the entire team's utility pool, so being able to communicate with your teammates to set you up will be a blessing. Say you're going against a Sova. A lot of times it's pretty easy to track if you're going to have to worry about a Sova dart. If you got a homie playing on site off you, all it takes is for you to be like, hey, shoot my dart for me, or hey, shoot a Reyna flash. If your homie on site helps you do that, the enemy team can hear those gunshots and hyper focus on the people on sight, and then boom, you have the easiest picks of your life. Level 2 is going to work exceptionally well with lower tier guns. If you're on a bad buy with like a Spectre or a Stinger, you can cause some serious damage from close range if set up properly. As a Jett, my favorite thing to do in these angles is to make myself extremely hard to be traded. I go for 1, maybe 2, and if my ammo is low or my health is waning, I try to dash into safety or dash into my own smoke and let my teammates try to cover or save me. Or at the very least just smoke myself off and try to force them to have to overextend to trade me. If you're a Jett, always make them work for it. You gotta be annoying to kill. Level 3 is going to consist of your generic angles on sight. When you're in level 3, you're committing to the sight hold, but unlike level 2, you actually have cover to play around with. Level 3 allows for stronger sight holds and a higher chance of being able to stall sight pushes. You're going to get the most bang out of your buck with stronger guns and rifles when it comes to these angles, but you're not limited to it. You can still do some serious damage from Jenny with a Spectre. When it comes to level 3, the same principles of level 2 apply when it comes to util being baited out early, making your hold stronger. This is your reminder, get comfortable contesting level 1, my Padawans. It helps. Trust. When it comes to these different angles and playing Jett, like I mentioned earlier, you gotta be annoying to kill. If you're in dice, for example, you can get a pick here, and then smoke here, and then move over to Jenny. Or you can do the same smoke and then fake that you're crossing and just stay put. Or you can toss the same smoke and fake that you're crossing and peek the left side to catch them with their pants down. Or you can do the same thing on the other side. You can go for 1, smoke this left side, and then playing your smoke and hold for people trying to push and hard clear you. Another thing that I like doing is sitting behind this box right here and just trying to get a timing peek on the people trying to close the switch. You can smoke after the pick and then continue pushing through the smoke and just causing havoc, or you can just go around and just try to stay alive. You can jump over to this Jenny side and do the same thing. Your smokes are extremely versatile and useful, so make sure to use them. Remember, the longer you stay alive and stall, the more time your teammates have to come and help bail you out. Being hard to kill is a trait every Jett main should strive to try to master. Level 4 is going to be the most passive of all levels. When it comes to this lane, it's going to consist of Heaven or Hell. More specifically, Heaven in this case. It's still a toss-up between Hell being level 3 or 4. I say this because level 4 is best suited when playing retake. That means you're not committing to holding the site here. You're relenting the site and plan on overwhelming them and diffusing it with a strong wave of utility usage. There can be 2 reasons for this. A, your team is stacking and contesting another lane, because if you got 3 of your teammates stacking towards this B site, it's a fool's errand to believe that you can try to hold site against 5 people by yourself. Or B, you guys have really strong ultimates that can clear out the site as fast as the enemy team can take it. You gotta pay attention. If your team's stacking the opposite site, holding level 2 or level 3 won't give you the most success. That's where level 4 comes in. You can hold angles in Heaven and use your dash to get away safely to live to fight another day. I love trying to sneak in freebies here. One of my favorite angles in the world is behind this box right here. If I'm playing retake on this level 4 area right here, I like sitting here and just biding my time and just hiding and then trying to get a pick on the Jett dashing on top of generator, or trying to catch off some bozo trying to close the door. If you get your timing right, you can get a pick and then dash out and get away from Heaven and put your team in a position to retake of 5 versus 4. You just raise your team's chances of winning by a wide margin. If they smoke Heaven, you can challenge through the smoke and then dash back. If your team smokes off A main, you can spam as they run out while having cover that you can tuck in if they spam back. Sometimes people don't have smokes at all, and you can hold off angles towards Heaven and pick people off as they're trying to clear sight. Or you can just play fully passive and just hold for people overheating and overextending, keeping a strong foothold towards Heaven so your teammates can rotate safer. You may be wondering why I saved level 0 for last, and that's because this is the riskiest level. These are your flank plays and pretty much your high risk, high reward plays. If you want to be an extremely impactful, top of the food chain Jett, you gotta be comfortable and confident pushing the envelope and going for these sorts of info plays. The type of plays where you trek into enemy territory to secure either map control or information for your team. For example, if you peek back here and work up towards level 0 towards this A lane and you don't see anything, that tells you a whole bunch. Because just like that, you filled in some gaps in the map that'll help your team figure out what they're doing. Here's another example to help you guys understand why pushing and contesting these level 0s is so important. Let's scale back to the full map. There's 3 lanes, right? Say the enemy team shows really early activity towards the B lane, so you push and rotate through level 0 and go on the flank. But your team is badass and they succeed in stopping the enemy push. By you gaining the space that they're actively giving, you're not only containing them, but from then on, you can start telegraphing their movements. If you sneak in top mid and hide behind this box or something, they won't be able to rotate and go back towards the A lane without you knowing, or without them going through you first. Map control is not only information, it's also security. You gotta be comfortable with making mistakes though. Sometimes you will get punished. You're gonna run into rats, or you're gonna run into human killjoy turrets, and you're gonna die early. And unfortunately, because ranked is ranked, you might get an earful for some toxic dumb teammates who don't know any better. But I want you to hear from me here and now. You are doing a great job trying to make these plays work and figuring out how to make them work. You gotta play to get better. You want to figure out what works and what doesn't, when it works and when it doesn't. The more you experience, the more you know. That's how game sense is built. You won't know what a bad play is until you make it, so go for that flank. Alright, that was pretty lengthy for a single level, I know, but I really wanted to break down the insights and reasonings. It'll make the rest of the explanation for defense smoother when you know the whys and the know-hows. Most of the concepts that I talk about on this A lane can be applied to the B lane. Here's how it looks like broken down into levels. But we're getting ahead of ourselves now. We can't skip the mid lane, so that's what we're going to tackle next. When you watch a lot of high level Jetts like Dirkgay and Aspas and Tens play ranked, a lot of them default towards mid on defense. This is because these guys are confident enough in their aim that they believe that they can shut down mid with gut skill alone. It's a good place to default because you can rotate quickly to either side that needs help. Friendly reminder again, as a Jett main, you should be wreaking havoc towards every lane on the map on defense. Huge trait that you should work on is to be unpredictable. But I personally think mid on Ascent is Jett's playground, so if you want to default towards somewhere, default here. If the enemy doesn't have a Sova or a Fade, pretty much any agent that scans you, you need to be shutting down mid. I personally love starting pistol rounds towards middle. It's a great way to build early momentum by diffing an enemy who's confident enough to challenge middle. If there isn't much activity here, I can just rotate quick to whatever site needs help. Pistol rounds are usually a gut feeling though. It really just depends on the comp. If they have 3 duelists for example, one including Reyna, I can almost guarantee that he's going to be picking you from tiles or top mid. But if they got a heavy utility team with like 2 initiators, most notably Breacher Sky, I tend to lean towards playing a site more. When it comes to the level 1 on the mid lane of Ascent, very rarely is it worth to fully contest and fight like the level 1s towards the bomb side lanes. This entire mid area is pretty hard to hold and sites end up usually being more important in ranked. This is why I pretty much classify level 1 here in mid more as a level 0. It's just much easier to take control of this area as an attacker. You can still contest it pretty well with a well placed smoke either tiles or top mid. If you don't hear anything or see any activity going on, you should try to be confident to sneak into places like Sub Rosa or this top corner over here. Remember, if they're giving the space, don't be afraid to take it. If you can lock down mid with some good positioning alone, you could definitely win some juicy rounds.
Tom, going A, stack A, stack A, stack A. Going A.
Yeah, looking at now. I ready? I'm flashing him in.
Spike planted. 1 enemy remaining.
Level 2s were the fun starts. Just like the A lane level 2, these angles are going to be more in the open. These are the angles and the spots that are most likely being cleared by initiator utility. Like I mentioned earlier, level 2 is where you find the angles that work really well with bad guns. We're going to start off with bad guns and then work our way, don't worry. These angles can for sure get you some frags, but we need to understand when they're more likely to succeed. Let's start off on the cat side. Here's some angles that work really well. The only downside is that these angles are really easy to clear. The better players you find, the better that they are at isolating one angle at a time. So for example, if you're using the spawning cat right here, you're pretty much just sitting and hoping that they don't clear you if you don't take some extra steps to try to help you out. It's only a matter of time before someone goes through the motions and they just peek you. You can use timing to your advantage and peek them and catch them off guard as they're clearing you, but that also needs an advanced understanding of timings. More often than not, there has to be a reason why they don't clear you. Whether it's a teammate over here in tree baiting and shooting, just trying to catch their attention, or utility that they're forced to shoot like a Reyna flash or like a Sky Dog or something that just keeps them on edge and catches their attention. Another angle that I really like is this one right here behind the plant, but you gotta understand the attacker's POV. Say that they smoke off garden. It's pretty inconsequential to take a couple footsteps to the right and just hard clear that angle. That garden angle is their biggest danger. If that's taken out of the picture, the next angles that they have to worry about are these close angles. One way to make this work is with a smoke from your controller player. If they do smoke off your garden and you know that they're coming for cat, one way to make this angle work is from a counter smoke from your teammate. If the counter smoke can stall for long enough for the enemy smoke to go out, that means the pressure from the garden angle comes back. Or at the very least, you just need a buddy baiting for you. Someone taking pop shots just to try to take some heat off. Now for the bigger guns. The fights that you're going to be taking in level 2s are going to be like your ins and outs. Get one and then dash out. When you're towards Arch and Cat, it's far too easy to get traded or wall banged, so you gotta know when to stop pushing your luck. When it comes to rifles, I don't really challenge the chokes too crazy unless I'm really feeling it. 50-50 fights are the hallmark for not the best play. Here are some strats that I really like. As soon as the spawn barrier drops, I love strafing around the corner, hugging this wall just to try to get a really fast peek into this top mid. You can pair it with a smoke towards tiles to be extra safe, but unless if they full send the angle, the box should be enough to cover you. If they haven't been smoking you off from Cat, you can get your control to smoke off tiles and you can just hold for people trying to swing out and overextend. Remember, the goal is to get them to waste util. If they start smoking you off, that means you're doing good. If they start smoking me off Cat, I love sneaking into the Cat smoke and just trying to catch people off guard who walk into it, or if the smoke dissipates, I can try to fight somebody who's sitting outside of it. Sometimes people spam though, so watch out. Now let's move on to the big boy operator. Normally there's a bunch of different ways that I like peeking my operator on cat. First is the same top mid peek that I mentioned earlier, except just doing it with the sniper. Next though, there's 4 different ways that I like going about it. First is going really wide and using this left wall as a cover. In this one, you'll get the deepest view into cat and you'll see them the fastest, but a lot of players with good crosshair placement pre-aim this angle pretty well. Something you should be ready for, but if you have the op, good enough reaction time, you should be able to sit the guy down. You need to have a good reaction time because sometimes people just jump jiggle if they know you can afford the op, but since you're so wide, you still get a chance to pluck him out the air. Next is a really off angle, dead smack in the middle of cat. I'm not the biggest fan of this angle because you're going to be forced to use your dash, but if the enemy team has been swinging tiles consistently, it's worth the investment. But usually, I just like saving my dash for riskier peaks during the mid round. Now with the fine angle that should be able to save your dash. It's this generic cat angle where you just hold wide and use the cat wall as cover, and as soon as the spawn walls go down, you can take a fight. Something else that I really love doing is implementing timing in a lot of my peaks. Something I really like doing is kind of just tucking and hiding over here and just really biding my time until maybe I hear a flash go off, or maybe if I hear footsteps going off into this fridge area, I just go for one and then dip out. You gotta play a little bit with the timings here and just get really comfortable with it. Now moving on to the arch side, when it comes to rifles, these are 50-50 fights, so if you're feeling them, go ahead. Not the worst fights to take, but definitely not the best. Something that I really like doing is trying to sneak into these corners and just rat out. But scam characters like Sova and Fade are going to be your biggest threat. If they smoke it off, I like sitting in it and just trying to catch someone slipping, even peeking through with a dash prime and ready and trying to catch people off guard that are walking up cat. A lot of fights and decisions when it comes to playing Jett really are on the fly, so just do what you can. My favorite angle is over here on the right side because plenty of times people do mess up their smokes and you can get a clear line of sight towards people walking up cat. But like I said, if they got scans and they know that you like to fight mid, the enemy team is bound to start revealing you. So level 2 angles with rifles work best once the threat of being scanned and revealed is past you, so sneak in after if you can. Now to the operator. Nothing really crazy here, especially when you're holding for top mid. If they know you have an operator, a lot of the times people jump spot, so I like holding for that over the box. If nothing happens instantly, you can hold normally for a wide peek, or if you want to get really risky, you can walk and try to hug this right wall and then hold an off angle for the people who are walking up cat, then trying to dash away safely. If you want to peek the other side of things, you can hold for tiles. I personally always hold for wide swings because kids and Radiant are crazy. But a lot of the times it's really just depending on how they've been swinging all game. If you're playing against slow players, they tend to jiggle and just simply walk out sometimes. Also, it just really depends when you're holding the angles. If you're holding here in the beginning of the round, it's likely that if they are going to peek, they're going to be full sending the swing. But if you find yourself holding this angle late into the round, chances are they're just going to walk out just trying to be sneaky. But since I mentioned earlier that scan characters are the bane of your existence here, I want to show you that there are plenty of ways to try to counter that. From just opting way further back and just waiting out the dart and then walking up after, to just paying attention where they've been darting, pre-smoking where the dart's going to land, and then peeking from there. This usually gives them a heads up though, because a lot of the times darts are really high up on the wall and they can see it. So my favorite way to go about it is smoking myself rather than the dart. For example, if the Sova darts from tiles and it lands on the left side of the wall, I smoke the ground and then I peek from the right side of the smoke so it doesn't reveal me, and vice versa if the dart's on the right side. Level 3 in mid really just consists of your basic safe sniper angles. These are really hard fights to take with rifles if you're peeking up mid, because when it comes to this tree and this pizza market area, if you're trying to fight these guys, there's a chance you're going to be swinging into multiple people at once. So I'd advise you not to really fight from here unless you have something to give you the edge, whether it's a Sova droning for you to give you a good idea of what you're going to be peeking into, or a flash from somebody, or someone smoking off the choke, whether it's this cat or this arch area. If it's not smoked, it's going to be tough to hold, so I recommend holding off angles just in case. If you don't know any off angles, here are some of my favorite. When it comes to cat, my favorite angle in the whole game is over here. Nobody ever clears this, I promise. This is some serious secret sauce that I'm putting you on. If they're walking up, you can get a free pick or two and just dash away. If your teammates smoke for you on cat though, you have the advantage, so there's no reason to be holding an off angle. You can hold wide and proud and then fall back to the off angle after the smoke dissipates. To be honest, most of this level in mid is going to consist of off angles and just playing off your team. They're pretty important chokes, so try to get some crossfires in. Remember, this is your fallback area from level 2, where most of the time you're going to be starting off and being aggressive. This level in level 4 is where you're going to be retreating to so you can regain your bearings and figure out what to do next. Level 4 is really boring when it comes to mid. Only time you're going to be getting picks is mostly going to be with an operator or like a marshal or something. Whenever you're in defense in a lot of these areas, a lot of times the best route is just hold for lurkers, just jump spot, just trying to get some information for like contact plays and walk-ups. You're ready to rotate on command. You're mostly just playing safe here, just trying to play for information just so you can stack a site whenever you need to. Now it's time to finally tackle the B lane. It's sectioned off a little bit differently from how the other side is. The same principles that I discussed with you guys on level A pretty much still apply towards B. When it comes to playing a Jett in level 1 though, the most annoying piece of utility that you have to deal with is the Omen flash that people toss right here. This flash has given me so many headaches, so if that's something that you're going against, something that I like doing is just sitting towards this logs area, waiting the flash out and just dodging it, and then going for an aggressive pick. When it comes to playing Jett, one way to counter the enemies is to always try to aim to lure the enemy into a false sense of security. If the enemy team has a Skye, you can go wide and communicate to your teammates and be like, hey, don't let the dog concuss me and I'll handle the rest. You can go for a pick while they shoot the Skye dog. If your team isn't the helpful bunch, you can rip off a smoke and give yourself a quick one way to try to get a pick, but remember, picks aren't your only goal. If you can only manage to come out with breaking some utility, doing some damage, and draining their resources, you're still having impact. If the enemy team doesn't have an Omen and you don't have to worry about that super annoying flash, you can just go wide and try to pop your dash just like normal, just try to punish the mistakes. One favorite peek of mine to catch enemies off guard is to, as soon as the spawn barrier goes down, go forward a teensy bit, and as soon as the wall is to your back, you can wide swing towards the right and swing into them very fast. I've caught a stupid amount of people with their pants down right here. So many people have their utility out and they just never expect it. Like I mentioned before, some of my favorite times to contest and fight level 1s is whenever the enemy team is planning on farming orbs, whether they're one off or they're broke. Make sure to make them work for it. Don't get too crazy though. If you overextend, you can possibly get one dig to not only gift them an ultimate, but a gun. Opping this area is pretty straightforward. You can hold the line and shut down any peaks, allowing your team to reroute and strengthen other lanes. This doesn't give you the most control of the lane though. Something that you can also do just to give you some extra security is to push up and get an even more aggressive line with the operator. You can raw dog it and just walk it up and trust in your gun skill, but if you can have a teammate help you with some sort of utility to give you the edge, that's even better. For example, since a lot of Sovas already play B, one thing that he can do is just drone you up B main so you can post and for sure shut it down. If you can shut down this entire lane, that amount of map control will make your teammate's life so much easier. Making your teammate's life easier is pretty much Jett's rule of thumb. We'll get more into that whenever it comes to attacking though. An additional thing that you should be on the lookout for is Sentinel utility. You should make it your mission to break Killjoy turrets and Cypher trips and chamber trips. Any pressure that you can cause or any peace of mind that you can rob for the enemy team will help you out in the long run. If it comes to the point where you have full control of this lane and you hear some activity towards mid or towards B from your team, that's when you can start pushing the envelope towards level 0 and just get some picks from behind. I've gotten so many free picks pushing B main like this. Now back to level 2. Level 2 again is going to be these early sitting duck angles. These are going to be the angles that you find yourself falling back into and sometimes getting stuck after contesting level 1. These angles work best whenever you got some sort of crossfires going on, some bait and switching from your team. Remember, the more utility you drain out and bait out early, the stronger these spots will be. For example, say you peek B main and you fight a Jett. He wusses out and he uses his dash to stay alive. You then end up just falling back and then you find yourself logs. If the enemy Jett doesn't get 2 picks to regain his dash, he doesn't have a dash to gain space for his team. If he can't smoke dash in, that means he won't be able to get some info on you mid dash. So if the enemy team just pretty much just walks out B main, they're going to be going on the chopping block. As a friendly reminder to my Jett mains, you gotta be annoying to kill. Here's a clip where I do just that. The enemy Jett dashes out and I completely ignore him because it'll be more beneficial for me to fight the people going out. I get a pick and I instantly dash towards lane, causing the enemy team to hyper focus on me and swing me to try to trade me. Little do they know, my team already rotated and they're getting crossfired by 3 people. Make your teammates' life easier while being a headache for the enemy. Level 3 is yet again going to be on site. This is where you're your team's last defense at denying the enemy team from planting spike. The hallmark for a good Jett is yet again being hard to kill. When anchoring a site, killing people is going to be the goal naturally, but you should always aim for trying to stay alive for as long as possible to buy time for your team to rotate in and help. If you get 1 pick, you can smoke the lane just to make being traded harder. You can use your smokes to reposition, you can go from box to back site, just be a headache. Play ring around the rosy if you have to. Every extra second you buy is precious. If you stay alive on site, they're not only pressured to kill you, but they're going to be pressured from your teammates rotating in. If they're being pinched, they're being pressured. Pressure causes mistakes. The more mistakes that they make, the more kills you have on your belt. Now lastly, level 4. Level 4 is again just pretty much just playing retake. If your teammates are stacked up towards the A lane or cooking up a mid fight or something, no matter what gun you have, it'll be far too risky to contest level 1 against all sorts of utility. If they rush you, the chances of getting Jett dashed on or Raze double satcheling on you, getting ran down pretty much are way too high. If you die by yourself early on site, they have full control on site with man advantage. Big error. The right play in this scenario when you're all alone on this lane is pretty much just sitting towards level 4, just trying to punish mistakes, just trying to keep a strong foothold just to make sure you guys can retake together. If you're feeling frisky, you can peek through the smoke and go for risky picks. I love doing this because it's toxic and it'll be sure to tilt the enemy team. Giving sight isn't bad if you guys can go for a 5v5 retake. More likely than not, the enemy team drained their resources taking the site in the first place, while chances are you guys probably saved up. After that, you pretty much turn into an attacker for the retake scenario. So that about wraps up how to break down your role as Jett on defense. Remember, the levels are pretty much just a gauge to help you guys build up an arsenal. The more plays you have, the more ready you'll be for anything. I'm giving you guys a basis to build on so you can have an actual playstyle, rather than just being on autopilot all the time. This will help in your consistency way more than aim training will. I've switched my sensitivity every day since the game came out, but since I know how to play the game, I can always be confident that I'll end up match MVP. If you structure your gameplay off your role as Jett, rather than just trying to out-aim everybody, you will climb through the ranks. This I can guarantee. Now for the long-awaited offense. We had to crack down and break down a lot of ideology when it comes to defense, because now as an attacker, you can have a pretty good idea on what you should be trying to counter. Your role as Jett when it comes to attack is to make your teammates' life easier by being the main aggressor. You should be playing Jett unselfishly. Kills aren't your goal, they're just a bonus. Your main goal is to lead the charge and essentially become a decoy. The better you are at this, the better your team does as a result. The levels still apply, we gotta just flip it on its head. The only difference is level 0 and level 4's roles are swapped. Level 4 is their territory while level 0 is yours. Pretty straightforward. So now we're gonna break it all down so you can find out how to have the most impact on offense when playing Jett. Since we got the ideology down, I'm not gonna break it down one lane at a time. I'm gonna be breaking down the levels together to give you guys a good idea on how to frag out. So level 0 when attacking isn't that deep. It's pretty much just your spawn, this is your territory. But there are early engagements to be found here, tiles being one of them. If you're confident in your aim, taking a fight with Cat in bottom mid isn't the worst idea. If you know that they got an up, that's a different story. I love peeking with marshals, and then maybe like on pistol buys, I love fighting here just to try to get early man advantages. When it comes to peeking Cat, you remember the 3 ways I like to peek it? Wide, in the open, and tight. A good and efficient way to peek Cat is to isolate each and every single angle one by one. Pretend that the wall isn't there. Line up your crosshair and then treat every single angle with the respect that somebody can be there. And that you peek only so much so that the other 2 angles can't see you. You peek the wide angle first since this is the angle that's going to see you first, and then you isolate the off angle, and then you can try peeking the tight angle. This is what's called slicing the pie. The better and faster you are at this, the better your mechanics are as a whole, and the less you get caught lacking. A direct result of this is that more people would think you're cheating. If you clear every single angle with respect like somebody can be there, even if it's unlikely, they're going to think you're walling. You can slice the pie towards bottom mid too. I personally love slicing these angles with operators for early picks on attack. If you're up against another operator, it'll be a 50-50 though. If you can try getting some help from your teammates to give you an early edge, that's perfect. Whether it's a flash or a Sova drone or a raise nade, anything to try to give you the edge. Something to get them off an angle for a split second, just enough for you to be able to post on them and get the jump. You can do this from top mid or when it comes to peeking a main. Now to move on to level 1. Now if you remember, level 1 across the board are pretty much neutral zones. If the enemy is giving it up every round, that's good for you. If you can turn these areas into question marks for the enemy team, they will know what site you're going to hit until you hit it. Let me explain. A lot of pro defaults really just boil down to gaining control of these areas as efficiently as possible. Defaulting, for those who don't know, just means playing for control of these extremities so you can decide where to go with the information you gain from controlling these areas. A common misconception that I see a lot is a lot of people think defaulting means just playing slow or playing for picks. There are mid defaults and anti-eco defaults and A defaults and B defaults and all that stuff, but whenever you default, there has to be a goal in mind. For example, if you push off the enemy towards A main level 1 and force them to smoke you guys off, that's essentially turning that level 1 into a question mark. If they aren't proactive towards the middle lane and the B lane in actively gaining information, they can only guess if you're going to hit their site. The more levels around the map that you can turn into question marks, the less the defense has to work with. If they're not sure if you're going to hit A because you turned it into a question mark, there shouldn't be any reason to stack it, other than a pure gamble or a lucky guess. When it comes to Ascent, normally the standard defensive setup would be a 2-1-2 setup. So if you guys bide your time and deny information, by the time you guys hit a site, it's going to be a 5v2. So as a Jett, your job is to lead the way and maybe use your teammates' help to push off and take control of these level 1s. When it comes to taking control of B main, something that I really like doing whenever I don't have any initiators or anybody flashing for me is smoking right here and just giving me a bunch of different options to peek and fight with. I can jump on the box and take a fight right here. I can wait out the smoke and then fight from the left side. A lot of the times the enemy will be pressured because he's going to be scared that you guys are going to double peek from both sides. When it comes to these level 1s, it's always best to use regenerative abilities to take control of these areas. So like a breach stun stun or a Sova dart or a sky flash. Depends on who on you have on your team, so act accordingly. Now you gotta make the mid lane into a question mark. The same things apply pretty much. Something you can do is just smoke off cat or bottom mid, depending on what the enemy is doing or peeking. You can smoke it yourself as Jett if you're crafty enough and try to get some off angles. If not, it's a team game, so a dart or a stun or a fade eye helps tremendously. Just be nice to your teammates and they'll probably be happy to help you out. Level 2 is where your dash comes in. I'll give you guys a couple of my favorite Jett pathings in a second. But first, I want you guys to understand why you're dashing out in the first place. A common misconception is that your goal is to get kills. It's not. That's just a bonus. Your main goal should be to gain space and in turn, make your teammates' life easier. You're not a wrecking ball here, you're the diversion. For example, normally when a defense is holding A main, 100% of their attention is on the A main choke point. The second you dash out, their attention is split because you actively create another angle for them to worry about. This is where your value comes from. Remember on defense when we broke down the level 2 spots, your Jett dash actively counters all these different spots. If you make it a habit to dash while looking both ways and clearing these angles, not only are you gaining valuable information for your teammates, but you're also actively creating a crossfire. Say someone is close right on Ascent, you dash out and you find the guy. This guy is torn between two different angles. If you play it patiently and peek with your teammates, this is a guaranteed kill. The biggest advice I can give you when it comes to Jett dashing out though is to be patient. Smoke yourself twice if you need to. The last thing you need to be doing is dashing into your own smoke and instantly peeking and dying in a place where you won't be able to get traded. When you dash out into your own smoke, try think of it like you're playing chess. Your Jett dash is your first move. You should now take that extra second in your smoke to just listen and be reactive and trying to figure out their move. Sometimes you can hear gunfire, sometimes people toss utility or flashes, sometimes they're revealed, and that's when you can fly out the smoke to pounce on them. Unless if you have information early on where they are, be reactive after you're in your smoke. It takes some practice to get it down, but I promise your success rate when it comes to entering as Jett will explode. Think of it this way, if a guy's playing towards generator and you dash out towards middle sight, out of pure reaction, his crosshair will instantly be on you from a safe position. If you peek too early and die without gathering any information, he can't be traded and he has a chance to get a couple more after you. But if you use patience in this scenario, the longer you take, the more he's going to be pressured by the guys coming out A main and utility and stuff. He's going to have to make the quick choice of either fighting you, spamming smoke, or instantly trying to fight the guys running out. If your initiators have good utility and he gets revealed, you can pounce all the quicker. Here are some of my favorite Jett dashes. And remember, don't be stingy with your second smoke. The more time you can buy and stay alive, the more chance you can give your teammates to scale up so you guys can trade off each other. Same thing applies towards all the other level 2s. When Jett has a dash, she's pretty much an initiator. Don't be stingy with your dash either. So moving on to level 3, here's usually where you're going to find your sentinels and your controllers playing, or more specifically, anchors. Level 3 honestly doesn't have anything crazy whenever it comes to Jett, other than just taking your time to clear sight. If you didn't die on the initial dash play towards level 2, good chances you should be trying to group and lead the way to take control of level 3. There isn't anything of note here other than making sure you're in a position where if you die, your teammates can trade you. Pay attention to your scaling, making sure you're not too fast where you're giving the enemies free 1v1s. If you still have a smoke to your name, you can use it to isolate the sites and isolate fights. Now lastly, we're going to move on to level 4. Level 4 should by most accounts be off limits. This is overheating territory, but if you're one off the clip, push it. If you take the site quick and clean, there's a good chance it can't beat you to these chokes if you're Jett. It can be really good to take control of these areas just to give them more obstacles that need to overcome. And that's pretty much going to be it, guys. This is my attempt of breaking down what makes a good Jett on Ascent. Some people might disagree, some people might agree, but who knows. All I know is that this ideology has served me very well. If this series does well, I can start doing every map, and then I can start moving on to different agents. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is today's code for a chance of free one-on-one coaching.